Hey, Riding Side Saddle. We're back. It's Tammy.
And Lisa.
And Vicki.
And Vicki.
She's held captive back there
I am.
for a whole week.
She's back. She might be writing SOS on the car windows.
Well,
we're looking for someone to escape. She's hanging a white flag out the window.
There's a lot of hot breath in here, so she can write a lot of things on the windows.
Vicki, poor Vicki, she thought she was in for one episode, and she initially said, hell no to that, and now she's back for two. So while we've got her, we're going to keep her, and who knows if we're ever going to let her go. But for sure, we're going to finish this chapter. We are in season 6 of Riding Side Saddle, and we've decided for this season to do a very, very, very deep dive into this book called Women Who Run with the Wolves, Myths and Stories of the Wild Woman Archetype by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And we invited Vicki to join us for chapter 3, which has turned into 2 episodes for Riding Side Saddle because we didn't get very far in the first episode of chapter 3. Maybe about halfway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About halfway.
Yeah, but I got about half my tabs.
Wow.
Vicki was impressed with all my tabs too. You're welcome. They come in handy.
It's the real deal.
Yeah.
Like that.
I don't mess around.
Is not a joke.
I don't
about
mess
the
around.
Tabs.
It's
right.
not, no.
It's not an exaggeration in any sort of way.
This is what the inside of my head looks like.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot. I know.
Crumbled and torn and
yes,
bitten on and
written over, barely hanging on. Yeah, that's how exactly what the inside of my head looks like.
well, that's for another day.
This is a metaphor or not. It's a real life example.
I'm going to take a picture of that and post it.
That's funny. Well, we left off on page 94, the 4th task, which is called Facing the Wild Hag. So now this story is about Vasilisa, who has the wicked stepmother and stepsisters, and her real mom has died, and the stepmother sends her off into the dark, scary woods to find the hag to get some fire. And so we've gotten through the forest.
Yep.
Now she's going to meet the hag.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
So this is kind of, Vicki, where you had been talking a lot about the different tasks associated with, in the folklore, she has to meet the expectations, right? It's either you will get what you've come for if you can meet my expectations, or you die. Like, right. Those are the 2 choices here. Mm-hmm. And some of the things that Vicki had talked about already is really like relating it to your own personal experience and women, like people in general, that in order to unlock the power, the magnitude of your gifts, of what you've been given, of intuition, there are tasks that are put in front of you that you have to complete in order to kind of, it sounds silly to relate it to a video game, but to get to the next level.
It is, for sure.
And you don't know what tasks are going to be those tasks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of like are a little bit blindfolded, like bopping around, banging into shit and like, oh, that didn't work. Turn around and let's move another direction.
Yep.
Welcome to life. Kind of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is, this particular task is letting go of the frail, too sweet child, like letting that psyche, that persona die back a little more. So if we remember from last week, Vasilisa was very accommodating.
Yes.
She went along to get along. Whatever task she was assigned, she just did it.
People pleaser.
She didn't complain. Absolutely people pleaser.
She made herself smaller.
Yes.
Yes. Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
My
because
value.
it was easier.
Yes.
My value is associated with how good I can make you feel.
Yes.
Right. Right. And so this meeting the hag is where she starts to let that too good child die.
Right, because all through the forest, up until this point, she hasn't been in the situation yet where
Right.
she has to question how she's been in the past, right? She's been under the pretense all the way through the forest. I'm going to get coal. I'm still people pleasing. This is my
Yeah.
next task to perform.
Right.
Until she meets eye to eye with
Baba Yaga.
Yeah.
The hag.
Yeah.
Right. And in the fairy tale, there's a very descriptive scene about the house, Baba Yaga's house.
Mhm.
It's a house squatting on chicken legs. It's a cauldron, right? Spinning on chicken legs. It whirls and spins when it has a mind to. So then Clarissa takes that, because that's what this book is, right? So there's the fairy tale, and then she pulls out
The meanings. The
right.
symbolism.
It kind of reminds me of high school English literature class, where you had to read like Shakespeare and, things like that.
And then talk
or
about
even
it.
Huckleberry Finn, right?
Yeah.
And pull out the symbolism.
Yeah.
That's kind of what this book reminds me of in
That's
that
fair.
way. So anyway, the house symbolizes the organization of the psychic space a person inhabits, both consciously and unconsciously. Ironically, if the story were a compensatory dream, the eccentric house would infer that the subject, in this case Vasilisa, is too unremarkable, too middle of the road, and needs to twirl and whirl in order to find out what it's like to dance like a crazy chicken once in a while.
So just to consider the most insane, out of your mind aspects
Yeah.
of yourself that you don't allow out. You're
Right.
too
Safe.
safe.
You're too safe. That's a great word,
That's the
Vicki.
best word.
Yep. Yeah. This house is alive, bursting with enthusiasm, with a joyous life.
Look what you could be. Do you look fucking crazy? Yeah, you're a cauldron on chicken legs jumping around with a witch inside of you.
Right.
But look at the fun I'm having.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I'm living
It's magic.
things that you could never even imagine.
Right. It's just magical. I have house dreams a lot.
So do I, girl. House dreams are a big thing.
Yeah.
They're important.
I'm going to have to think about some of the dreams I've had and relate them back to what she's talking about here, because I have one dream in particular that I have it repeatedly.
Reoccurring.
Yes, where I am living in this big, beautiful house, and I'm only using part of the space because I'm storing everybody else's stuff in those other big rooms.
Wow.
It's not even my stuff, and I want to have a rummage sale, but no one will let me.
You need to sit with that
Right?
for
I know.
a lot.
I know.
That's
I read that
huge.
today and went, oh yeah. I wrote on my tab, house dreams, so I would come back and look at that. That is huge.
That is very, very big.
I'm storing everybody else's stuff, so I can't use all of my space.
Yeah.
I also store my own stuff in real life. I mean, look at these tabs. This is what the inside of my head is like.
Would you pick up your book so I can post this online? Because good
Here, wait.
grief. Thank you. Okay.
Sorry, pause, intermission. Photo shoot in the middle of our podcast.
Yeah.
That's nice, Lisa.
It's okay.
That's great. We couldn't have done that later, but that's all right.
Make it more awkward.
She talks about how many women are in recovery from their nice complexes. It's that people-pleasing space,
It is.
right?
Yeah, it absolutely
Many
is.
women are in that place, and I think this is what happens when you get to be middle-aged, where you get to a place where you're like, I'm not doing it anymore.
Well, okay, so listen.
Chester happens. I'm not doing it.
So listen, I think that, gosh, I get so frustrated with this because we speak and speak and speak, and episode after episode after episode is like, why the fuck are we doing this? We shouldn't be people pleasing. But God damn it, we are designed that way
We are.
as mothers. In order for that child to survive, you let down all of your stuff. My needs are not nearly as important. I'm going to be up around the clock. I'm going to be like in pain to feed this child, even to birth them, like everything from you. Like, you are not the person that you were before that process. And by nature, you become central. Your being, your existence is central to somebody else. So I struggle with this because if I think it's an evolution. I don't think it's fair to say as a woman, you should have never become a people pleaser. I know that there are many situations. I'm only talking about like the act of motherhood and how selfless you need to become so that this person is
alive.
Yeah.
Really?
Really.
Yeah. I think that it's not unique to just being a mom. I think that women generally are nurturers, whether you have children or not.
Agree.
Vicki shared with us before about how when her mom and dad were passing and she became power of attorney, she took everything.
Agree.
Right? She took over everything and became nurturing to her parents in a different way. It still is. I mean, I hate to say that's people pleasing. I mean, that's just a necessity. Somebody has to take care of them, right? Much like somebody has to take care of this child. I don't know how you get around some of that.
I think that's
your
my point.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like it's by nature, like to a certain degree. Like it almost feels like it is a rite of passage to say, I'm done with that now. Like I had to do that and now I'm done. As opposed to never doing it.
I'm moving into that next stage or that next phase.
Yes.
You know, taking care of that child.
Or,
yes.
Fill in the blank.
Yes. I'm moving into the next stage.
It feels more like a rite of passage now, having talked through it, than what I originally thought that it was. I still don't know if I'm right, but that's the way I feel about it now.
I think that it is, I think it's not just one thing, right? It's a people pleaser to be safe. There's that.
Correct.
There's and I'll use the same term, people pleaser to keep somebody else safe, right? Like your parents or your child or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are rites of passages. It's I'm a people pleaser because it's safer for me to stay small. That's what she's talking about in this book. And I think they're two separate things. They're parallel in some ways, but I don't think they're the same. I think the people pleasing and giving all of yourself to somebody else, whether it's a parent or a child or what have you, those are stages of life.
But that's my point.
But I think the other part is not that it is a stage of life, but it's not in the same way. Like that's a personal growth thing. When I'm a people pleaser to keep myself safe, that I have some personal growth to do there in order to stop pleasing everybody else and doing for everybody else because it makes me feel safe.
Well, I have a hard time delineating between this, and we could talk about this for a full hour, so we're going to have to probably put a tack in this one. But I feel like those behaviors, they're the same behaviors. The motive might be different, but it's the same behaviors, and I think that it's very, 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 very easy to allow those behaviors to go beyond the walls of what
because when you lose boundaries,
predetermined.
you just lose boundaries.
Yes.
I think the stages of life can get you can move through those and come out on the other side, having done growth along the way, of course, because you do.
Right.
I think that feels a little more natural to me than when you're people pleasing to keep yourself safe, and some people never grow out of that.
I feel you. That's true.
That's what I was getting at. Anyway, So letting that, we're talking about the recovery from the nice complexes.
Mm-hmm.
That would be somebody who is a people pleaser by nature.
Right.
Not just in a phase of life, but to keep themselves small and safe. So when you are in recovery from that, no matter how they felt, no matter who assailed them, they responded so sweetly to be practically fattening to the other person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Though they might have smiled kindly during the day, at night they gnashed their teeth like brutes. The Yaga in their psyche was fighting for expression. That's how you grow out of that.
Yeah, because you're fucking
people-pleasing.
angry.
I've had it.
You're angry.
So I'm sick and tired of being treated this way. I am allowing it to happen. I can't make them be or do or say anything. I can change the way I react. I can just smile and take it and be very kind and sweet in response, or I can tell them to go take a jump off a short bridge.
I mean, that's one way to say it.
However I know you would say something else, and that's okay. That's all right. It says, this too nice over-adaptation in women often occurs when they are desperately afeared of being disenfranchised or found unnecessary. That's the, I have to be too nice to keep myself safe. What if they don't like me? If I'm not sweet, if I'm not nice? Then what? Where's my value? What's my role?
That. Where's my value?
Right.
Right? Because I've connected to that for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
And now I don't know what I am if I'm not this.
Right. I don't remember if I said this on a podcast or if it was just a conversation with you, Lisa, that after I'd done a whole bunch of work in like 2013, 2014, someone said to me, you used to be sweet. You
It
used
was
to
a
be
podcast.
Was it a podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That will probably stick with me for the rest of my life.
Uh-huh. That was a turning point.
It was absolutely.
Right.
It was a realization.
I'm making a conscious decision
to
stop doing
get used
that.
to it.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they don't have to get used to it. They can carry on.
Or
but
not.
That didn't mean that you were going to change.
But I'm not doing that anymore.
Right.
Right. I am changing because I'm not doing that anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she's talking about a little bit later on page 97, she's talking about how basically how men react when women stop the people pleasing. And yeah, how does that go over? Not that great. But she says, if men are going to learn to stand it, then without a doubt women have to learn to stand it. So if I'm not comfortable being different, saying no, having boundaries, putting myself first, being selfish instead of selfless. And we've talked about that on other podcasts too, right? The word selfish has such negative connotations. Yep. But when you're completely selfless, being the teensiest bit selfish feels like a giant no. Right?
100%. It's that example of you're home by yourself and you're hanging out and you're maybe eating some chips and watching something on TV, and all of a sudden you hear the garage door open and you have to jump up and like
straighten everything.
You gotta,
up.
Yeah. I wasn't sitting down or relaxing. That's what that is, right? Like I don't feel comfortable for myself.
Yes.
To do something restful.
Like relax.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're not comfortable with it, the people around you can't be comfortable with it either.
Right.
Yeah, it starts with you. If men are ever going to understand women are going to have to teach the configurations of the wild feminine to them.
Which is a challenge, I guess, because, the wild feminine is something that's new to all of us, like a lot of us. I don't know a lot of women who's like, I have this mastered. Don't worry about me. I got it. Right.
Certainly not
like
young women.
Like we're struggling.
Right.
We're struggling. Like we're scratching and clawing to figure it out.
Right. Well, I feel like that is part of, we've said it, right? Like you have to do this task before that one and this one before the next. it's all part of that process.
It
You
is.
have to crawl before you walk,
It
kind
is.
of thing.
But my point is then, how do you bring somebody else along to explain it to them when you're trying to like
You're figuring it out yourself.
yes.
I
And
think you say it just like that.
Well, and it's like two different people, right? You used to be this way.
Yeah.
You used to be the people pleaser. Now,
Yeah.
who is this new person?
right.
Right.
I don't know her.
And
Right.
don't really like her very much either.
Right.
Right. Right. So I don't think I did share this in a podcast.
Ruh-roh.
But when I was married the first time, and our marriage was in big trouble for a lot of reasons, but it had gotten to the point where my mother noticed, and she sat us down and said, "You two are in big trouble. You better figure it out. You need to reconnect. You have to do something, because your marriage is failing." And my husband looked at her and said, "You know what the problem is? The problem is she used to be my puppet, and now she isn't anymore. That's the problem."
Yeah.
So I changed, and he didn't like it, and he didn't like who I changed into,
Yeah.
and that was the end of that marriage. It's very,
It's this.
book.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
She doesn't do what I tell her to do
Right.
anymore.
Right.
I can't control her.
Right.
I used to.
She's doing her own thing now, and I don't like it.
Right.
She thinks for herself. I don't like it.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't make all the decisions.
She doesn't believe me when I
Shit.
tell her stuff anymore.
Right.
Right. It is, in that moment, I was so completely ashamed, because I didn't even realize that's who I was.
Previously.
Yes.
Like the puppet version of
I
yourself.
had no idea that that's what I was doing.
Yep.
I thought I was going along to get along. I thought I was being a good wife. I thought I was being supportive. But I wasn't. I was completely selfless.
And controlled.
And absolutely. Right. So, unfortunately for some of us, we have, some big lessons to learn while we're completing these tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Right. So on to the fifth task, serving the non-rational. She's talking about the psychic tasks of this time are learning to stay with the hag. So remember, this is when she was doing all those impossible tasks, all of the things, cleaning, the washing, the cooking, the sorting of the poppy seeds and the mildewed corn, and
Yep.
things that, and all in a very, very short time frame, right? So acclimating to the great wildish powers of the feminine psyche, coming to recognize your power and the powers of inner purifications, unsoiling, sorting, nourishing, building energy and ideas, which the connection there is washing Baba Yaga's clothes,
Yeah.
cooking for her, cleaning her house, and sorting out all of the elements. So that's what this fifth task focuses on. To wash something is a timeless purification ritual. It not only means to purify, it also means to drench, to permeate with a spiritual numen and mystery. It means to make taut again that which has become slackened from wearing, like when you put your jeans in the wash.
I know exactly what you mean.
They fit really good.
Right. Don't put them in
before
the
they
dryer.
went in the wash, and they came out a little bit tight.
Right. They're taut again.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
So when it talks about task 5, the tasks that she goes through for Baba Yaga is the task. Is the
That
fifth
is it.
task.
Yeah.
And it reminded me, Vicki, of a conversation that we were having earlier, kind of about that that route of taking your path, right? Like you start out this direction and you start like moving forward, and then things start to like fall apart. So then you continue on your path and you continue in the chores, and until you have completed all of the tasks, so that you can have full appreciation of the gifts where you're going with that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She gets really deep with all of these tasks, though. I don't know that we need to go into all of that, but like every washing of the clothes means something. The cooking
Agree.
means something.
Agree.
You know,
Right.
They're all metaphors for some part of
The function.
yes
Yeah.
of your psyche. Excuse me. Part of it is the cooking part. Like, how do you feed that part of your psyche? She says, a woman must be willing to burn hot, burn with passion, burn with words, with ideas, with desire for whatever it is she truly loves. It's actually this passion which causes the cooking. A woman's original ideas of substance are what is cooked. To cook for the Yaga, one must arrange that one's creative life has a consistent fire under it. We're back to that creativity
We
thing.
sure
again.
are. Yep.
Yes. Lighting that fire, our
Right.
passions, our desires.
Right.
Yeah.
Creating does not just mean with paint.
No,
or
it doesn't.
clay or
Right.
Like
What's important to you?
right. Creating your life.
Right.
What will not leave you alone?
Ooh, that's a good way to say it. Ooh.
It's the truth. Like
Yeah.
it taps you all of the time. You should be doing this. Ooh, this reminds me of this. I wish that I would be XYZ. Oh, this book, this quote, this
right.
time of day,
Sure.
this, like, it's all reminding you what should you be doing right now?
Right. As I was reading that, I was thinking, it would be great to have more time or to make better use of my time. And we talked about this with Heather, I think, in season 1.
Yeah.
About, so how do you get, so all of these things that we're talking about are often hobbies. So how do you get these hobbies to be your full-time thing, right?
Yeah.
And still pay your mortgage and still put food on the table and, all of the things that we need as humans in 2024. That is really difficult.
That's where the crux is.
That is where the crux is.
Mhm.
But Clarissa says the fire requires watching, for it is easy to let the flame go out. The Yaga must be fed. There's hell to pay if she goes hungry. For me, that's when I start to feel shriveled up,
Mhm.
where I feel stuck. I get depressed. And it turns into this really like a vicious cycle. The less creative I am, the more depressed I get. The less I'm likely to be creative, the more
Right.
depressed I get.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. Until I just find myself sitting on the couch all the time.
Right.
Not doing anything. Even little things like reading or knitting, because I can't even get to that point. Because Baba Yaga's hungry.
Yeah, your
The fire
your
is
soul
just
is-
about out.
your soul is telling you.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So she talks quite a bit about that. The rest of the chapter is that sort of thing. I did want to make a note though. So we've talked before about how we get to, we have free will, and sometimes you think you're like, okay, I'm all set. I'm going down in my pottery studio. I've blocked this time off, and then I go down there and my wheel's broken.
Mm-hmm.
But I made time for it. I was serious this time. I was gonna, and now there's something standing in my way, like a little test. How
It
serious
is a
are
test.
you about
I was,
that?
I was just going to say that. Like, well,
She talks about that.
okay.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So in the fairy tale, Baba Yaga gives her, it's not just one time she has to clean and cook and do the laundry and something impossible like sifting through the mildewed corn, right? She repeats that more than once.
Right.
And she says, though you managed to do my work once doesn't mean you can do it again. So here's another day of tasks. Let's see how you do. Or else.
Right.
So again, with that, let's just see if you're
Let's
serious.
test you.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Vicki, I know that you didn't have a book either, so I feel like I'm just rambling on here. But if you have something that fits in any of this stuff, you are free to jump in. I just keep reading from the book because I have all these
You're guiding us because I don't have my book.
Okay, all right.
So
all right.
thank you for it.
I feel like I'm monopolizing the conversation, and I didn't want to
I
do
think
that.
that's good. The only notes that maybe I would circle back on a little bit was they reference like washing the clothes was the purification, right? The cleansing, the purification. Sweeping of the yard was like meditation, clearing your mind.
Interesting.
Preparing the food was the passions, desires, new ideas. The separating of the poppy seeds in the dirt was discernment. Dreams may, your dreams may give answers.
So determining
Those are
whether
good
or not
points.
it was a dream, like a random dream, or it was meant, like it was
A message.
a
Yeah.
message for you.
Yeah,
Discerning the difference between them because they look very similar.
right. So there was purpose in the task that she was given.
Right.
If I remember, I'm not going to remember this for certain, but I'm going to bring it up because I feel like it was part of this as well. Like it spoke about those very household types of things, in part because through those very action orientated but not mentally stimulating
Mundane.
things, like you,
that's the word she used.
you
mundane.
actually get like you get in a zone of places where you can like you can navigate into intuition or kind of like leave what you're doing mentally and go into that space. As women now, right? You're sweeping, or washing the floor, or vacuuming, or putting laundry away, or whatever. Those aren't things that you have to think about. You just like they're action related, and your mind can go. Am I making that up, or
No.
did I make that connection?
And absolutely, you
Sure.
can problem solve, you can come up with new ideas. It's when you're doing those mundane tasks that your mind
It's
can
free to
finally,
wander.
right? Because we spend our days on a hamster wheel,
Yeah.
and you're running while you're at work. Your mind doesn't even have time to process what's going on.
Right.
You're just
Too much
reacting to
input.
the day.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. It's
And so in those mundane tasks, you have time to finally process.
exactly
Yeah.
that process or create or imagine or problem solve or even let something random come in,
Right.
like those songs that pop into your head like ridiculously randomly like
And don't leave.
and like and that goes back to the discernment, like why the hell am I thinking of a song that I haven't heard in 20 years?
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like sometimes there's reasons for that stuff.
Right. Right.
So, are you saying while I'm scrubbing the toilet, I shouldn't be, swearing under my breath because I'm the only one who ever cleans it?
Well, it
freaking
depends.
toilet?
What are you accomplishing? People pleasing stuff or
No, the goddamn toilet just needs to get done, and no one else will do it.
I love that though, because I do
Yeah,
like
you're right.
sometimes I feel like even probably knitting for you.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
Like it's just something that
It
your
is.
body does.
Yep.
You don't have to think about it. You are free to be wherever you want to be.
Yep.
Inside and outside of your
Sure.
head.
Very true. It is meditative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, all right. So moving on to the sixth task then. We're coming
Getting there.
in, halfway.
All right.
No, more than halfway. 2/3 of the way. This is called separating this from that. So I think we're on to the discernment part.
Got it. The
That's what-
mildew corn,
Right.
Yes.
which I learned is hallucinogenic.
Yeah. I didn't know that either.
That's wild. I've had corn like that. I didn't eat it.
It's called vag. No, is that potatoes?
No,
what
it's
do you make?
potatoes. It's called
Mash?
smet or something.
Oh.
Smet or like people eat it.
Oh, really?
I've seen recipes for it. It's
Oh.
super gross looking,
Yeah.
but
no
people do
thanks.
eat it.
I feel like
It's like a you pay a lot of money for it.
really? It's a
Yes.
delicacy?
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, if it's
All right.
a hallucinogenic,
I guess,
suppose.
but I don't know. That doesn't sound great. So she talks about how the sorting in the tail is the kind that occurs when we face a dilemma or question, but not much is forthcoming to help solve it. But if you leave it alone and come back to it later, there might be a good answer waiting for you. Or we talked about this before, go to sleep and see what you dream.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or see what pops in.
Right.
That period of time in the morning, like right
that
in
twilight
between.
time. Yeah.
Yes, right in between. You're kind of awake, you're kind of not. Man, there's a lot of stuff that comes in during that time.
Yep, for sure.
I had some of my best ideas at that time.
I agree.
That.
Like
That's
just when you wake up,
Yeah.
and you just know, oh, this is my next project.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the next thing I need to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're assured. You're certain.
Yes.
Like it isn't
yeah.
ooh,
I
let
wonder.
me consider this maybe.
Right.
Like this is it.
And then that gets the wheels going. Like, how am I going to make this happen? Hey,
Right.
that's a really good idea.
Right.
One of those things was putting a Reiki room in my house.
Oh,
Really?
I got that just as I woke up one morning. Like, you need to have that in your house. And then it became, well, what would that look like? What would I want that to look like?
Then
And
you
then-
start daydreaming
then the
and making
creation
lists.
starts.
The
Yeah.
creation
Mhm.
starts. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. I often, when I wake up like that, I'm not all the way awake. And the
Right.
more awake I get, the more of that I forget. So I've heard people, they keep a notebook and pen next to their bed for when
Yep.
they wake up like that, they write it down right away.
Yes.
I could see that being really helpful.
Yes. I have not done that and I have lost a lot.
I have too.
I put it in my phone.
Okay.
So when I get up,
Yeah.
then I'll quick put that in
That's
the phone.
a good idea.
I still have had instances where I've forgotten it, even though I keep that, right
Mhm.
there for
Yeah.
me to
Notes.
put
Yeah.
that in. But that's how, even with my dreams, if I have 3 dreams a night, by morning, sometimes I look at my notes and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right. I did dream
Oh,
that.
Oh.
Interesting.
But I would have forgotten it had I not put it in
Right.
my phone.
Sure.
Right. I'd have a hard time. I would have to train myself to do it well
Oh,
because
absolutely.
it would be very jumbled up, I think, if I were trying to do it in the middle of the night.
Sometimes.
Do you have
Yeah.
a lot of light in
Sometimes
your
it
room?
is.
I don't think I'd be able to see.
Well, your phone.
Oh.
I'm using my
You put it in
phone.
your phone.
I put it in my phone.
Even your dreams you do.
Yeah.
Like you're awake enough
Yeah.
to do that? Oh.
Sometimes it's through one eye.
Squinty under the covers so you don't wake up anybody else.
Right. Wow. I don't think I wake up all the way enough to do that consistently. I mean, sometimes I'm awake, and I'm laying there and reading or whatever because I can't fall back asleep. But I generally don't have a dream that then keeps me awake.
I suspect that that's a exercise very similar to anything else.
Maybe so.
Right? The more acclimated you are to
Yeah.
it, the easier it's going to get.
Yeah.
I need to give that a try.
Maybe this conversation will spark me to
Yeah.
remember to do that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she goes on to talk about what the corn means and poppy seed and all of that sort of stuff. She talks about how all of that it used to be used as balms and salves, infusions, poultices to hold other medicines on the body. So these are not like you had talked about how the corn was a hallucinogenic and there's some she's talking about the smut, the corn smut,
Yeah,
the
that's
black
it.
fungus.
Smut. Yep.
Yeah.
So, and it goes back to, it really goes back to Baba Yaga and what she is, right?
Mhm.
She's a healer. Like,
Yeah.
she chose these things deliberately, based on their healing aspects.
Right. I keep thinking about Shakespeare and how, you pull out all of the metaphors and this is way easier to read than Shakespeare, but those folklores, right? You pull all of that stuff out of those stories and underneath there are messages. There are
huge amount of
currents
meaning.
and yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
Insane.
Right. she talks about the garden. So when, she's in the garden separating the poppy seeds from the dirt, that the garden is metaphor for the meditation practice. It is that of seeing when it is time for something to die. In the garden, one can see the time coming for both fruition and for dying back. In the garden, one is moving with rather than against the inhalations and the exhalations of the greater wild nature.
So that's a thread, I think, through this book. I'm sure it's going to be in future chapters, because it has been for the first 3 chapters, that ebb and flow of life, death, life again. And how, as women specifically, like, that is, we are in tune with that, right? That is part of us as creators, right? As women, innately, to understand that cycle and to take care of that cycle. So, new life is often what we're more geared, not geared towards, but maybe more in highlight as women. But death is equally important.
Right.
And it needs to be tended and cared for equally as new life. I think we as a society just miss that entirely, that. Including women, right? It's another reason why I wanted to bring you into this conversation is, through your gifts and intuition, you've navigated to that space a bit through the work that you're doing and supporting people through that passageway, right?
Right. Like, I have been keenly aware of the death cycle in the last 4 years. Mom has been 6 years, but then Dad's passing. I knew Dad passed January of last year. By March of last year, I knew that I needed to start working with the hospice patients.
Yeah.
That was a huge calling. And I started getting, information sent to me by my phone. Ironically, right? Things I needed to see, things I knew in my head that before Dad passed, I was able to have a conversation with him where he was able to clear karma because of that conversation, where I was able to ask him some questions. But then he also was able to say, there were times I wish I didn't have a family.
Oh.
Now, he did not mean I don't love my children. I didn't love being a family.
Yeah.
And I understood that. I understood that what he was trying to say was, it was hard. We had 3 little kids. I was the sole provider for the family. A lot of responsibility on his shoulders. Like, I'm sure there were plenty of times he was overwhelmed.
Right.
So to be able to provide that karmic healing for him.
It was really honest.
Yes.
Right. And with his dementia, it happened, this conversation happened on a day where I didn't know if I was going to have that window. He was past that point of having that type of conversation.
Sure.
But that particular day, the stars aligned for us to be able to sit down, and I was able to ask some questions. He was able to speak his truth. But then I started thinking about people in hospice who don't get that opportunity.
Right.
And that window passing. And so I started leaning into being more of a karmic healer. So I had the Reiki healing background, but kind of leaning into that karmic healer so that I could work with hospice patients and provide some of that karmic healing before they pass. Because I believe if you don't have that in this lifetime, you are carrying that into your next lifetime. And any burden that I could ease for them in this lifetime, I wanted to do for them. Because that generation, they don't have those kind of conversations.
They don't.
No,
You're right.
You take it
Yes.
without speaking about it.
You don't ask for forgiveness. You don't give forgiveness. You don't say, I'm sorry. You don't have those kind of conversations.
Right.
Right. Even to say I love you, like
Right.
that is something really difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
For some people.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a real gift that you have.
It is.
And it's wonderful
It's
that you
important.
share it.
Thank
It's
you.
really important.
Absolutely.
And it's underviewed in society.
Undervalued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Underviewed. Undervalued most definitely, but not even spoken about. Not even visualized, right? Like we don't talk about it.
It's not a service everywhere.
No.
Not every place has a Vicki, for
No.
instance.
Definitely
Yeah.
not. So thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
I'm fortunate because the place that I'm volunteering at and doing this type of work, anytime I say to them, would it be okay if they always say yes,
Oh.
which not all medical facilities are open to Reiki healing.
Yeah.
And alternative, like we do sound baths there for
Nice.
Oh.
Nice.
the patients. Yeah, so I think I'm where I'm meant to be.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's a good feeling too.
Mhm.
yeah,
That's a gift to you,
yeah.
from you.
Right, right.
Mhm. That's pretty cool. Well, I wonder if that kind of feeds into this next task, the 7th task, asking the mysteries. So after the completion of all her tasks, when she is she's getting ready to leave,
She's
right?
done.
She's got the skull and she's going to ask some good questions. The tasks at that time are questioning and trying to learn more about the life, death, life, nature, and how it functions. So this is when she asks about the horsemen.
Mm-hmm.
Learning the truth about being able to understand all the elements of the wild nature. This is the part where she says to know too much can make one old too soon. So if you were 10 and you knew all of the things that you learn when you're 50, you would be too old too soon. You know what I mean?
I do.
From a psychological standpoint.
Yep.
That would be so damaging for a 10-year-old to know the things that a 50-year-old knows.
Right. And it would damaging to the degree that it would screw up
Absolutely.
the normal maturity of that person
For sure.
for the rest of their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It truly would be damaging.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So as we were speaking earlier, and to the point of your example here, there's certain times in your life that you are capable of learning things appropriate for that stage. And that's you don't want to become
It's by
too
design.
old too soon.
Right.
You can't possibly know those things before it's your time.
No.
And maybe you know it at a certain level, right? At a not quite as in-depth level.
Like a superficial level.
Yeah, but then as you continue to go and, I'm making a spiral shape, that depth changes to meet the maturity of a deeper level, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That makes sense. She talks about how during this task, we all begin with the question, what am I really? What is my work here?
I ask that all of the damn time.
Right. It sounds
Like,
like
what am I
that's where
doing
Vicki
here?
is too, right?
Right.
And she's answering those questions for herself. It's again, what a gift, Vic.
And it changes. I started out as a Reiki master healer, but it's evolved. In just a couple years now, I call it karmic healing. I'm not sure what the name of it is.
Yeah.
I don't know of anyone in my area that's doing that type of work.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen or sourced people in other areas? like that do work similar to you or not really? Nothing? Okay. Truly unique.
You know, on a, I guess just more, not quite as deep level, you're giving them a place to vent, to get some things off their chest so they can pass without those burdens.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
It feels like a spiritual death doula is what it feels like.
Wow.
Interesting.
Not everyone can do that. I don't know that I could.
I know I
so
couldn't.
Thanks, Vicki.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So then the 8th task, standing on all fours. She says Baba Yaga is repelled by Vasilisa's blessing from her deceased mother and gives Vasilisa light, a fiery skull on a stick, and tells her to go. And the tasks from this part are taking on immense power to see and affect others. That's when she receives the skull. And looking at one's life situations in this new light, finding the way back to her stepfamily.
So it makes me wonder about that aspect of, like, she's repelled by the blessing that Vasilisa received from her mother. It makes me wonder, like, and I don't think that I read this. I think I concluded it myself. But it makes me wonder if, like, from the wise woman grandmother perspective that Baba Yaga has, I can imagine that that too good mother blessing might feel very insignificant. Like, you think you have this wonderful gift, but this is, like, that is merely a spark, right? So maybe repelled might be like the wrong term, but I can imagine the amount of power that Baba Yaga has and is gifting to Vasilisa to be like, okay, this is so much bigger. It might be uglier, and it might be like you might have to work for it, and you might be sad or angry or afraid to see what you're going to see because of it, but it is so much bigger than that measly too good blessing that you received up front. That's how I perceived that. Like, okay, we're done talking about this. Like, if that's that important to you, then just go. You know what I mean? Like, you're not recognizing what I'm giving you right now. I don't know.
I'm not really sure either. She explains it, but it's one of those things that's like, I have to read it a whole bunch of times, I think. She says the Yaga is not repelled by the fact of the blessing, but is rather put off by the fact that the blessing is from the too good mother, the nice, the sweet, the darling of the psyche.
So it's kind of like the white wolf and the black wolf, really.
A little bit. It almost feels like, yeah, black wolf, white wolf.
Kind of.
That's
right. Yeah. The shadow.
You're like that. That's just so goody. I just can't. It's so sweet. I can't even swallow it.
It's the shadow work.
Yes. Right. And the Yaga is the shadow.
It is.
Right. Yeah. If the Yaga is true to form, she would not care to be too close to, nor for too long near, the too conforming, the too demure side of the feminine nature.
It's just wild.
Yeah.
Right. You're too sweet. You're too good.
Right.
I gotta go.
Right.
Yeah. She also goes on to talk about how when women integrate this aspect of the Yaga, they change from accepting without question everything that comes their way, right? So we've got the people pleaser, the doing all of the things all of the time without question.
This is what I'm told.
Right? To gain a little distance from the sweet blessing of the too good mother, a woman gradually learns to not just look, but to squint and appear, and then more and more to suffer no fools.
So hold up. Let me get this straight. it's that kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what I hear you saying is, and this is what I'm going to continue to ask about or like poke holes into and being okay with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So really, no one else knows how to clean a toilet? It's like that. It's kind of like that.
Kind of.
Yeah. Some women are afraid of this deep knowing via instinct and intuition will cause them to be reckless or thoughtless, but it's an unfounded fear. She says that, on the contrary, lack of intuition, lack of sensitivity to cycles, or not following one's knowing causes choices which turn out poorly, even disastrously. So ignoring that intuition is what causes things to be a mess.
Yeah.
Causes you to feel terrible, to not love your life, to not be who you are, all of the things that you could be. So there's really no reason to be afraid of having all of that power, because that's where the good stuff is.
Correct.
That reminds me of your intuition story, Tammy, in the very beginning of writing Side Saddle with your plane, your trip,
Oh,
where
yeah.
you didn't listen.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And you kept pushing and pushing
Yeah.
and pushing.
Yep.
We just want to get there. We just want to get there.
And then you ended up in a mess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
That's
a-
what that
absolutely.
reminds
That's
me
a
of.
very good example.
That was a good example. I
Mhm.
forgot about that story. Yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
I just want what I want,
Right.
Yes.
but it's better over here. No, I want what I want.
Take the later flight. No,
No,
I just want
no.
to get
No,
there.
this is
Right.
the plan.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna.
Right.
This was what I said
We'll
I
just
was
get
gonna
there.
do.
We'll just get there.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you sat in the
That's
airport.
a really good analogy.
Mhm.
I forgot about that story. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Fully true.
Yeah. Yep. Well, let's see. We've got to be coming close here. 9th task. Wrapping it up.
All right.
Recasting the shadow. This is when she's on her way home with the fiery skull on the stick.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
Yeah, so these are the psychic tasks. One's acute vision, the fiery eyes, to recognize and react to the negative shadow of one's own psyche and or negative aspects of persons and events in the outer world. Recasting the negative shadows in one's psyche with Hague fire, that is the wicked stepfamily who formerly tortured Vasilisa and their turn to cinders. So this is, I think this is where you, there's a couple of steps. You observe and you find your voice.
And I think that you look at things through a clearer lens.
Oh, for sure.
Than ever before. And that's where some of that kind of comes back to haunt you, and why she tried to ditch that staff with the skull a few times. Like, that's a very sad view. It's a very scary view, or it would might make you very angry at yourself, even for allowing that circumstance or situation to prevail, right? Like looking through your life at that with that lens, it's the raw, hard truth of where you have shortened yourself.
Sold yourself short.
Yes. That. And that's a sad place to look through.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
She talks about how when Vasilisa is afraid of the power she carries in that skull, right? Let me back up. She talks about how Vasilisa carries the blaze of knowing. She has the fierce senses. She can hear, see, smell, and taste things that she has like herself, her inner self. So she has all these senses, plus she has herself. It's, we have used that, society has used that phrase, women's intuition.
Right.
Right? So you've got all of your regular senses, plus you've got your women's intuition.
Your sixth sense, right?
She has the doll, she has Yaga sensibilities, and now she has the fiery skull, and she gets afraid of all of that power.
That power.
Right. But that really is, that fear comes from the ego saying it would be better, easier, safer to discard this burning light. It's too much.
You're too brilliant.
Right. Exactly. So it says a supernatural voice from the skull instructs her to stay calm and to proceed. And every woman has that same, you call it pivot point.
Yeah.
Right? And we have lots of them, not just one. Let's see. She talks about, again, be an observer. And then with the discernment that you learned, because you've got, right, we already had that task. We know how to do that now.
We have that skill.
Sorting through the dirt and the poppy seeds. That then you can find your voice. You can stand in your own power. Use your voice. Have some boundaries. This is where we come into having sympathy and empathy, and there's unconditional love with boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not so selfless. It is like when she goes back to her step family and they get burned up. That's letting that part of her psyche die.
That's letting it go.
Yes.
Right. It's the life.
Exactly.
Internally.
Yes. Right. She talks about how during this phase, a woman must choose her friends and lovers wisely, for both can become like a bad stepmother and rotten stepsisters. In the case of our lovers, we often invest in them with the power of a great magician. It's easy to do, for if we become truly intimate, it's like unlocking a lead crystal, a magic, almost like a crystal ball. A lover can engender and or destroy even our most durable connections to our own cycles and ideas. The destructive lover must be avoided.
So that, I think, feels like one of the biggest parts of this chapter for me. In talking about the people that you surround yourself with can very much destroy your ability to step into your own power.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And I think it has more force and impact than what we let ourselves believe.
Absolutely.
So
I would agree with that.
So it ties back to in chapter 1, I think it was, where it talked about those women who are oppressed and situations that are very oppressive, even the most meek and mild-mannered women and, controlled and all of these things, they still have that secret part of themselves, right? Like you can't, no matter what happens out here, you can't touch this really important secret part of me. I'll keep it very contained and private, but it's still mine and it's still here. That's what happens when you don't have the support system to say, let's hear about that dream.
That's right.
Let's hear about that idea. Like, wow, that sounds kind of amazing. Tell me more about that. Well, how are you going to do this and how are you going to do that? Versus, well, you can't, that's not how we do it. Right? And those people around you, that impact is very, very substantial.
Because they chip at it slowly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And then it starts diving into your
Yes.
own self saying, well,
Maybe they're
it
right.
is.
Right.
Maybe they're right.
Right.
Maybe it's too expensive.
And then
maybe that
poof.
was a dumb idea. Maybe
Right.
I really don't have that skill. Maybe
Maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe all of the
Right.
things.
right.
And that's really sad.
It is really sad. Yeah. So that's what the rest of this chapter really is talking about. Mindful choosing of friends and lovers, teachers. It's critical to remaining conscious, remaining intuitive, remaining in charge of the fiery light that sees and knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that was a big one.
Yeah, it is a big one. She goes on to talk about when we are connected to the instinctual self, to the soul of the feminine, which is natural and wild, instead of looking over what happens to be on display, we say to ourselves, oh, she's talking about like when you sit down at a buffet. Rather than, some people just look at all the things and choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'll have some of that. I'll have a couple of these. I'll take one of those. But when you're connected to your inner self, your intuition, you don't look at what's in front of you. You think about, what am I hungry for? What do I want? What do I leak? It guides you. That's where you start making the list. These are the things that I want. These are the things I need. I want to be over there. These are the things I need to get me there.
Mm-hmm.
I want a pottery studio. These are the things that I need for my studio.
Yeah.
You make your list.
Yeah.
I want a partner. These are the things I need. These are the qualities I need in a partner. This is what I want my life to look like. You make a list. Rather than looking at this is all that's available.
Right. And right.
I guess I'll take that one. Doesn't check all my boxes, but
that's what
he's
we got.
Available.
Right. And it kind of speaks directly to your journey as well, right? Like you wouldn't have said, so amongst this buffet, like I'm going to help support people as they transition. Like that just wasn't like,
that's not on the buffet.
Right. Like that wasn't a thing.
Right.
Your desire was to apply the gifts that you have to be able to support people to clear karma. So you had your list, like you figured out what you wanted. Now how am I going to apply that? Right? How am I going to put that into action?
Right.
Oh, well, on the buffet there's this nursing home. I'm going to try there. That's exactly what you're saying, right?
Mm-hmm. I think it close.
Okay.
I think the way I read it was if I'm Vicki, I have these gifts. I'm a Reiki healer. I can look at the buffet and say, well, there's a place and that's a thing, and well, I could add that and I could take some of that, rather than saying, I'm not looking at the buffet.
Mm-hmm.
What do I want to do with my gifts?
Mm-hmm.
I want to help people. I've already done it in a way that is available to everyone on the buffet.
Yeah.
What else is there?
Right.
How else can I use my gifts that maybe other people aren't aware of? Maybe they're not, I don't know. Vicki said it before. She doesn't know anybody who does what she does.
Right.
Right?
Right. I'm going to take my gifts in a different direction.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What does that direction look like?
Right.
Not what's on the buffet. What
Right.
direction could I go there?
No, right.
Yeah.
I know what I want to do. Now let's look on the buffet and see if they have what I need, right? Because she had to go
I think it's not looking at the buffet at all.
My analogy, I think, was more around like, okay, so I have the idea. I know what I want to do. I know how I want to help people. How am I going to bring that into the public to be able to do it?
Mm.
Right. And at that point, here's a nursing home. I'm going to go there and see if
I get you now.
They'll create that space for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Got it. The nursing home is on the buffet.
Yes.
Oh, I get it. Okay.
We're on the same
Gotcha.
page.
We usually are.
We are. It's scary.
Sometimes we get there in a roundabout way, but we get there.
All right.
We got to wrap this one up.
Yes,
this
we
was
do.
a long one.
We
This
have
was
to-
a long night. Poor
We have
Vicki.
to let Vicki go.
I know.
For goodness sakes.
She's never going to talk to us again. Never mind podcast. She's just going to delete our number.
Yeah. I won't be answering any phone calls for a long time.
No. The answer is just no.
In the middle of the night, we'll get a text from her. The answer is no.
Whatever you're thinking, it's no. All right.
All right. Yeah, we'll wrap this up. Todd has his work cut out for him. This was an extra long episode, so for every hour we talk, he's got 2 hours of work to do. So it's a lot.
Yikes.
I know. So thank you, Todd, for that steadfast dedication. It is. I just don't have enough words to express how grateful we are that you continue to stick with us.
For
6
like
seasons.
2 years,
I know.
honestly, 2.5 probably at this point, through the inception of the idea through to season 6.
At least that long. It might be longer because I feel like it took us 1.5 years just to get moving,
Perhaps.
to get out of our own way.
So thank you.
Thanks, Todd. So if you are interested in doing a podcast, Mind Garden Media, that's where he is. Reach out to them. They do everything as it relates to podcasts, from the guiding and creating the whole idea at the beginning. You want to just vet an idea, they'll help you through all of that.
Certainly give them a
all the
call.
way up to editing and producing. So Mind Garden Media, they're on Facebook. You can search them out there and give them a shout.
Absolutely.
And then we'd also like to thank our listeners, because without them, we don't have any reason to do this podcast except to entertain ourselves, really.
which we do a pretty damn good job of.
Yeah, that's a good reason. But but we would really appreciate having the listeners too, right? So thank you for following along, for sharing and liking and commenting and stopping us in our regular lives and telling us how much you value and appreciate the hard work that we do. So
Absolutely.
thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Till next
Thanks.
time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.